white man does not have enough privilege to give a fuck about your identity politics. This white man might be myself. I just don't have enough class privilege, money, wealth, and power to give a fuck about your constant appeals to this person's identity and that person, what's this person's race and what's their religion and who they want to have sex with. I just don't give a fuck about the identity politics. I just don't have enough money. And while I certainly did not vote for Trump, I voted for Jill Stein. Well, you fucking idiots on the left who are blaming all this Trump stuff on racism, you're a fucking idiots. You're all stupid and mindless, and you can't think for yourselves. You want to know why Trump won? Was the same reason why any Republican has won anything in the last 30 years. They all have the same thing. They just turned the United States into a myth. That once the United States was so wonderful, and then shit happened, and they're going to give you all jobs back and make it great again. That's it. That's the only thing they say, and they just try to sell this nice myth, story, and fantasy. None of it's reality based, but you go to a bunch of people who have shitty jobs and shitty lives, and they know it was much better for their parents and their grandparents, and you say, we're going to make America great again, and then you sell them a fairy tale and it sounds good enough, then they're going to eat it up and buy it. I mean, what about Reagan? He's a great communicator. What fucking ideas did he have? Nothing, just America's great, vote for me, pray to God, Jesus. That was all Reagan had. There's nothing going on in his brain. He's a fucking moron. Well, but he sounded good. He sold them a story. That's why people voted for Trump, not because they're racist. But you stupid idiots on the left, you just keep on hammering on about this racism thing. I would never go to one of these stupid anti-Trump protests going on now. Not that I like Trump. He's just a stupid egomaniac Republican piece of crap from the ruling class. But if I go to a protest, I want it to be a protest about something that has meaning. And running around with a bunch of identity politics freaks who have nothing else better to do but call everyone who they disagree with a racist, a homophobe, an Islamophobe, or whatever else phobe, that's just a stupid waste of time. So let's get into some more things about the identity politics stuff, other than all these white people who voted for Trump don't give a fuck about your identity politics. You have no economic theory whatsoever. Somehow the left, once upon a time, was about educating people about class struggle, how there is a ruling class, and all you people in the working class work and work and work and work and work, and then some people at the very top collect what you work, what's called surplus value, and they get more and more shit, and they try to give you as little of shit as you make as possible. Once upon a time, that's what the left was about. I mean, wasn't that what Marxism was about? Wasn't that like messages that you get from people like Eugene Debs, for example? At what point did the radical left give up on the idea that it's about class and it's just about yapping on about whoever this person's identity is and that person's identity is? Because even groups that are supposedly socialist, who are supposedly saying that this is what they do is to educate everyone about class struggle, they seem to spend most of their time just blabbing on about identity politics, as if people care about what other people's skin color is and who they want to fuck and if they want to fuck their dog, But what happens when you don't have a theory of economics and all the people, identity politics guys, talking about privilege and white male privilege? You don't have a theory of economics. So what your theory of economics is actually what there is now. And you see that these people are very fatalistic in their economic and political agenda, being that they have no economic and political agenda except to see what we have now continue ad infinitum, except let's just have less discrimination. So the idea is, if the United States has a massive prison population, we just need equal representation proportionate to population among all the races. So therefore, if we just lock up lots of white people so that there's proportionally equal amounts of white and black people in prison, they'll be fucking happy. If we need a proportionally equal amount of white and black people who are homeless, according to these people, you have no economic theory whatsoever. And it's so either you support the status quo, you support the system in place, or you support this notion of the spontaneous revolution that the people will just come together and by some miracle overthrow the system as it is and implement something better without any economic theory whatsoever. You know, because, just being involved with the Zeitgeist movement, how many times do you hear someone say, well, what do they do? As if these identity politics morons ever done anything, as if there's ever been any type of revolution in history that accomplished anything without economic or political theory. Unless you're talking about the identity politics people, because they don't believe that they need economic theory. And if you don't have any economic theory, you're not on the left. You're a fake left, and you're an idiot. You don't know what you're fighting for. You're not fighting for anything. You just want to yap on about how little privilege you have and how you wish you were like me, the white man with so much privilege. Sometimes you hear, about how if people could just live a day as a black person or a gay person or whatever, dude, I really want people to be able to live as, I want them to go through a day living as a white man in this society. And then at the end of the day, come back and tell me how much fucking privilege you are. Because really, by listening to all these identity politics people, if I wasn't a white man, you kind of think that by just being a white man, you'd walk down the street and people prostrate themselves before you and bow down and try to lick your ass, and that random women just try to have sex with you all the time, and people just give you money, and like you just wake up in the morning and the government deposits like $1,000 every day for you because you're a white man and you have all this privilege. That's the idea that you almost get, listening to all this stuff about white male privilege. And just, I guess if you're on the left and you happen to be a white man, and that means that you are forever being told how much privilege you have and how it's your white male fault for causing all the ills in the world, and it just gets to the point of total absurdity. It doesn't fucking mean anything. Now, and if you're getting this from the former ISO socialist research-based economy advocate white male guy, trust me, the poor white male guy living in the middle of nowhere USA really doesn't give a fuck about this. If you, I do know that there is that section of white people who really bought into this, and they feel so bad about being white, and they just want to apologize for it and listen to you talk about how evil white people are. The thing is, if you're white on the left, you've just heard this so many times. You can't function with on the left without constantly being told this, and you just get to a point where it's like in and out. You don't give a fuck, and you get to a point where you want people to focus on reality. I guess perfect example: Black Lives Matter. Not focused on reality at all, because what about if you're another race and you're killed by the police? Oh, who gives a fuck? So you just actually censored out information saying that the police don't just kill only black people, they kill lots of people. And we can get into why that is, and about ratios, but the fact that we have this massive, prison complex, for example, that has people of all races in prison, you think would want to bring people together and have them focus on what the underlying issue is, which is, of course, class struggle. But instead, we just have more identity politics. And everyone on the left has to pander to identity politics. Even if you're not about identity politics, it's like the Green Party. And I support the Green Party because I like their actual agenda. But if you start following them, then people just start yapping on about identity politics, and it's just like, who gives a fuck? I don't care. Identity politics gets to the point where it's just blatantly racist against white people. Not that white people are going to be offended by your anti-white racism, or give a fuck about your anti-white racism, and that's not why I'm bringing this up. I'm not bringing it because I'm offended, or I care. I'm just bringing it up to point out the vacuousness and of your identity politics ideology. And I think the best example of your racism against white people is that when white people do things you don't agree with, you assume it's because they're racist. Such as when lots of white people vote for Trump, you assume that they voted for Trump because they're racist. No, I didn't vote for Trump. And I think people who vote for Trump have a lot of problems going up in their head. Nonetheless, they voted for Trump because Trump sold them a fantasy story. They didn't vote for Trump because they're racist. And your failure to actually look at reality, look at what people are saying, listen to why they say they vote for Trump, and to just call them racist, that is racist in and of itself. And ultimately, the problem with people on the left being racist is that racism is not based in reality, and that means people on the left are not based in reality, which means that they have an ideology which is not based in reality, and they're going to do things in terms of their I don't want to say economic political agenda, because you don't have an economic political agenda. They're going to follow an agenda that's not based in reality, such as completely abandoning the idea of having an economic and political agenda to begin with, in order to just talk about everyone's fucking identity. Nobody gives a fuck. I don't give a fuck. White people don't give a fuck. Reasonable people of other races don't give a fuck. No one cares about your fucking identity politics except you stupid people who want to run on the street and talk about Islamophobia and racism, how people hate gay people, and sexism, and you're just going to list all these oppressed identities. The only oppressed identities that I really care about would be the working class and humanity as a whole being subjugated under this archaic system of capitalism. That's what you should care about, but you don't give a fuck about it because you want to defend people who want to have sex with their dog. That's what's coming up next, because I've kind of used that expression before, but I don't know how much more absurd this can get. It really has gotten to the point where we can have a president who tortures people, such as Chelsea Manning, who engages in a massive surveillance operation against the population, who invades countries and wages wars of aggression, such as in Libya, who tries to essentially through TPP wants to have corporations act as people and sue local governments for trying to have some type of control over what's going on in the communities. This Obama guy is total lunatic, and he's okay because he's black. And you voted for him because he's black, and now you're upset that Trump won because Trump is white. Now, Trump, the crazed, egomaniac, ignoramus guy who's just going to put people in positions to further the agenda of the ruling class and fuck up the human species more and send us closer to extinction. That's what Trump is about. As much as I can recognize that, I don't think he's sitting in wherever the Trump Tower or whatever he is with like 50 other white male dudes talking about their white privilege and how they have to fuck over the black man and make sure lesbians continue to be oppressed. I just don't think that conversation is happening. Do you seriously think that's happening? Okay, that's it. Bye.